Welcome to Illustrated Beards, brought to you by the Fantasy Shop, best in comics and games since 1981. I am Jason. I am joined as always by my co-host Mike. And tonight on the show, we're going to be talking about Volume 1 of Invincible. We're going to start doing this as an ongoing series. So a few episodes from now, you'll see us talking about Volume 2 of this book. So we're starting with Volume 1, Family Matters.
So that in 30 years, when I'm Lord God Emperor of planet Earth, and this is required reading, it'll be like the internet version of Cliff's Notes.
Yes.
You can just go in and watch these episodes and not have had to read the book.
Everyone's going to cheat your new world order.
Yeah.
Before we start actually talking about the meat of this book, I just want to make a comment. This book is entitled Family Matters. This is something cool that they do every trade, with the exception of like Viltrumite War. Every trade is named after an old sitcom. As they've started to go forward, I keep thinking, man, they're going to run out of sitcoms eventually.
Yeah, because Volume 2 is 8 is enough. Is anybody reading comic books old enough besides me to remember that show?
I remember 8 is enough.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't. Nick at Night, got it.
So, Invincible Volume 1 is basically a story about this world's version of Superman.
The thing that I like about it is it takes what's interesting about Superman. I can fly, I'm super strong, and I'm super impervious, but it doesn't go where Superman is uninteresting in that, you know, he's all powerful. He's this omnipotent being. Aside from this obscenely common dumb green rock, nothing can affect him, right? But then it pursues what they did with Spider-Man in terms of, I'm a high school kid, and I'm interested. I have a job, and I'm interested in this girl, and I'm dealing with getting my powers. But instead of them being spidery powers, they're Superman-like powers.
Yeah, it's about a character called Ultraman. He is from a planet called Viltrum. He's basically the protector of Earth. His people went out, and this is something that I actually find very interesting about the story, is the fact that his society has reached the peak of its perfection, and that they are going to try to find worlds that are not underdeveloped, but not developed enough to be outside their sphere of influence. Right. And they're going to teach them...
That can be part of their glorious, perfect union.
Right. They're going to teach them the perfection of their world. One of the things that I find so hilarious about that moment is that he's telling this story, and it's not up until the end of the story that you realize he was telling it to like 8-year-old Mark.
Yeah, which is great because he's playing with that Transformer toy. Yeah, it was really
and
cool.
8-year-old Mark, what he catches from the story, and the only thing he reacts to at the end is, I'm gonna fly?
Yeah.
Like, that's one of my favorite moments of young Mark Grayson's life.
The thing that I think that Robert Kirkman does really, really well in writing this book is that superheroes and supervillains, superpowers, aliens, whatever, it's such a common thread of life. It's such a common occurrence that they're not surprised by these things. I mean, if my dad had come to me while I was a child and said, hey, by the way, I've got this creepy mustache, and there's a reason I have this creepy mustache, and someday you'll have a creepy mustache too. I would be like, what do you mean I get to fly? That doesn't make any sense. This can't possibly be real. That's amazing. But for him, he's like, all right, cool, I'm going to learn how to fly. And when the dad goes off to fight God knows what, you know, mom's worried, but she's not too terribly worried.
Right, exactly. He's Superman.
Son develops his superpowers. Both of the significant men in her life are off doing this thing, and she's worried about him, but it's so commonplace. It's so everyday. So he sets this really, really sweet tone through the book.
Well, there's even that moment where they're all sitting down eating dinner, and you know, she says, oh, your dad's not probably going to be late, we should just start without him. And then all of a sudden he comes zooming in like the Flash, you know, hey, how was your guys' day? And then just have a family dinner like it is just expected. Even when he's teaching his son, there's a moment where they're flying together, and all of a sudden he just disappears for a panel and comes back, sorry, fire, saving some kids.
To show off.
Yeah,
but it's really, really neat. It's the essential moment in a young man's life where his father says, okay, I'm going to teach you to be a man. You know, I'm going to show you how to change the oil on your car.
And instead of teaching him how to shave, he teaches him how to fly.
Right, exactly. So he's taking his son under his wing and saying, you know, you're half human. I don't know the extent of your powers. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to keep up with me. But as your father, I have a responsibility to show you what it is to be a man. And that's really, really sweet.
What they're trying to set up with this story is the family relationship. And while I understand that, I do find that it makes this story a little anticlimactic as a trade. When you're not able to immediately go read issue 5 and 6 and go on from there. I mean,
Because living bomb, mastermind, super scientist, physics teachers, that's just not interesting.
But when you look at that in comparison to other stories like this, other superhero stories, is that a significant, a large enough threat? When I get to the end of the book, what I feel was that was very easy for them to deal with, and very easy for them to figure out. It didn't feel like they had to strain themselves to do this.
Because it wasn't about the problem, it was about who Mark is and who his dad is and the relationship they have with the mom wife.
Yes.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. It is very convenient. It does wrap up in a nice little bow.
We've always said in the store when trying to sell people on the idea of reading Invincible is that you got to go through the first couple. The first couple might not seem like they're right up your alley. Once you get 3 and beyond, you're going to be completely engaged and never want to stop.
And I actually have the Ultimate collections, the big oversized hardcovers.
Yeah.
And so the first hardcover has the first 13 issues in it. Do yourself a favor, get through all of them, and you will be hooked. I think the same thing about Walking Dead, which is a book I've long since quit reading. Sure. But I think it was a slow burn. Be patient. Your patience will be rewarded.
I think a lot of people, especially when you're a fan of Superman or you're a fan of other superhero stories, and I'm trying to sell you on this idea, you really might get through this first 4 issues and think, this is really not for me.
Right.
I get what they're doing. They're trying to tell a story about this family, but that's not really what I'm looking for in my superhero book.
Sure. For me, what this book does really, really well is Robert Kirkman shows you who this Mark kid is. He's in high school and he likes this girl. This girl is part of a super team and she's dating this other guy who's also on the super team, and he's just coming into his own with his powers. Yeah. So he's a little bit clumsy, he's not quite together, and he's finding his way into this world, which is interesting. So you as the reader, you are developing your association with these characters as Mark is developing his powers. So you're growing with him, so to speak. But for me, that moment where he's at the Burger Mart after school, because he's got to go to work, and he goes to take the trash out, and he goes to throw it into the dumpster, and then it just rockets into the sky. And he's like, kick butt. I've got super strength. Right. That's awesome.
It finally happened for him.
And then it goes home and he's at dinner. It's like, it's no big deal. Yeah. Oh yeah, I started getting my powers.
Superpowers today.
That's really, really cool, man. It's like I got an A on that physics test. That's great. You know?
Exactly.
It's so matter of fact.
It's a really well done story about a family, and that's what I think they were trying to get across. Mm-hmm. They were trying to establish the relationship of these, because let's face it, I mean, without spoiling anything for future episodes, I mean, they tear this apart. Mm-hmm. It is so deconstructed from this moment on. Now at issue 1, whatever it is, it's barely recognizable as the same book anymore.
Right.
The only thing that keeps it recognizable is this guy right here.
As Mark.
Or should I say this costume right here?
So here's what's good about this concept for me as a fan. I don't know anything about the Invincible universe. There's not thousands and thousands of pages, tens of thousands of pages, millions of pages of continuity that contradicts itself, and backstory, and editorial groups that insist that these things cannot be done and these things must be done. It's a fresh, brand new universe, new heroes, new experience that the writer, creator, owner of the intellectual property can explore what he wants to explore, and he's going to do what he wants to do with the book. Whether it's a good story or a bad story, he's going to tell the story that he wants to tell. Nobody's going to insist that he do otherwise.
Well, and there aren't a bunch of other characters in this world that you have to add in there that have to also have their own stories. I mean, his father's discussing his time off with their version of like the Justice League, which is the Guardians of the Globe, which is another. They did mini series for Guardians of the Globe.
I have to admit, I have not read anything outside the main Invincible
and you
title.
Absolutely don't have to.
Right, which is another great thing about this book.
Yeah,
is that you don't have to deviate into a bunch of peripheral BS.
Yeah, we covered that, I think, in the last episode about having to deviate.
The audience is going to think that I have multiple personality disorder or some issue because I was so angry and just vitriolic about the last piece of crap that we read, and now I'm like gushing about this sweet relationship between father and son, and it's good, it's sweet, it's touching.
Yeah, and I think if you take the time to check out Volume 1, and again, it's not necessarily what you think might be something that would interest you, keep going, because it will very quickly.
Yeah, because it will alarm you. It will shock you.
They don't put them on the trades, but the top of every single issue says the greatest superhero book in the universe.
Right.
The guy's self-promoted the greatest superhero book in the universe.
And I have to say, as a comic reader, I concur. It is the greatest superhero comic book in the universe.
It's definitely very fun. It's quite a short read with this first one, because it's only the first 4 issues of the book. But if we have intrigued you enough to go out and check it out, these are all still available, able to be got at your local comic store. Or the fantasy shop. I guess I could probably just go ahead and do that.
I'd rather for the fantasy shop. I mean,
come on into the fantasy shop and pick up Volume 1.
Yeah, I mean, we can, if we're to plug the shops, I mean, I could do that. I could do a whole episode about the company and our history and what have you. But I will say this: I'm so excited about the 3rd episode we do of Invincible. I really, really am, because the things that it's so sweet and classically 4-color and innocent, even though it tackles some pretty ugly subject matter with with suicide and the organic bombs and what have you, and sort of getting back at the cool kids. But the juxtaposition that what he does when it goes really ugly, when it goes really dark and violent and just rips your heart out, it's so intense that it makes that the build is so worth it.
One of the things you realize very quickly, I mean, I think by trade 3 or 4, I was blown away by how different it was just from this beginning. And this is an excellent introduction to this world, but it definitely is an introduction to be taken with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Because there is so much more to it, and there's so much differences about what it is now and what it becomes later.
Right. But again, it's an excellent example of really good storytelling, because this is what Mark thinks the world of superheroes is.
Absolutely.
That I'm going to go out and there's going to be guys stealing video games, and I'm going to punch them in the mouth, and I'm going to meet a cute girl, and we're going to find the bad guy teacher. And we're going to stop the bad guy teacher, and we're going to save the day, and everything's going to be great. And I'm going to go home, and I'm going to sit down at the table, and I'm going to talk to my mom and dad about our day, and it's going to be sweet and beautiful.
Invincible. Go out, check it out. It is worth a read, whether you're a fan of superheroes or not. Honestly, I've sold this to a lot of people that don't like superhero books because of that.
I absolutely concur. In fact, I have, among all the employees of the company in the many years that I've been here, I have a reputation as being a guy who doesn't like superheroes, which is not, okay, it's completely fair. But it's an excellent, excellent book, superheroes or not.
Yep. So, Invincible Volume 1, again, we'll be talking about the next trade of Invincible in a few episodes, so keep that in mind. Again, we'll link the first episode in the second episode's description in case you missed the first episode and you want to check this one out. But Invincible Volume 1 from Image, go out and check it out. That's going to bring us to the end of this episode. My thanks again to Mike.
Oh, dude, I love this. This is great.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time.
Bye.